I'm hearing more about long COVID again in the news headlines. So, long COVID, what does it have in common with this new mystery canine dog upper respiratory syndrome and pneumonia? What's it have in common with Lyme disease? Lyme is a chronic disease that's been around for decades. And what does it have in common with the flesh eating bacteria that was in the big seaweed thing that came across the Atlantic Ocean this summer? Well, the similarities all fall into this basic concept of either one, there's no waste in nature, which I've talked about before, or the immune system does not make mistakes, okay? So no waste in nature. I go into that in pretty good detail. I did a video on that October 13th. I talked about bacteria as the main thing in the no waste in nature. Bacteria exist to clean up dead or decaying debris. I did a video about that October 17th. And then other things that cause more virus-related issues, because viruses exist to help us to adapt to chemicals and toxins that are not dead, decaying material. If it's not dead, decaying material, then bacteria doesn't work. If it's some other toxin, the immune system has to adapt differently. That's kind of how viruses work. I did a video about that November 8th. So you can look into those for more background information. But for now, let me go to Lyme disease. Lyme disease is a bacteria called Borrelia. Well, if bacteria exist to clean up some dead, decaying, or fecal poop contaminated material, and people are having chronic Lyme, then that really suggests that there's some dead or decaying toxic material in the body that the bacteria is still feeding off of. If this new upper respiratory syndrome in dogs turns out to be bacterial, then it's the same reason or concept. There's something dead, decaying, toxic, or fecal contaminated in the body. Okay, so next, there was a big seaweed bloom that came across the Atlantic Ocean over the summer, and it was supposed to inundate Florida, and it ended up being nothing, or I didn't see anything from it. But closer to the time it got here, the fear-based media started talking about this flesh-eating bacteria that's in it. Well, it makes sense that there's a quote-unquote flesh-eating bacteria in the big seaweed bloom because there's microplastics in the water and in the seaweed. And there was a story, it's a few years ago, I vaguely remember hearing about it, that some researchers had found a new type of bacteria, or they created or something, a new type of bacteria that would break down these microplastics that we have contaminating the ocean. Well, nature finds a way. There's no waste in nature. If there's something in nature that's not being used by something down the line, then nature will find a use for it. So nature has created a bacteria that'll eat these microplastics that we've been contaminating the oceans with for 100 years. And those bacteria are so strong and aggressive to eat through microplastic that, yeah, if you get that in a cut or in your nose or in your sinuses, it could become a flesh-eating bacteria. But it's not just a random flesh-eating bacteria that's out to get us. It's trying to dissolve the plastics that we've contaminated the ocean with, okay? So there's no waste in nature. That's nature's way of finding something to help us clean up the mess that we've made. Then the new mystery canine upper respiratory disease, I talked a lot about it November 19th in the video, but it's all related too. So long COVID is where we are now. Long COVID's been in the news, and they're now blaming it on something called mast cell activation syndrome. And in their definition of description of it, they say that it's an incorrect mast cell activation, okay? Well, this is not the way it should be described. This is not right. This is not a good explanation. Just like there is no waste in nature, the other concept that goes hand in hand with that is the immune system does not make mistakes. Mast cells are immune system cells that release histamine and cause a lot of immune reactions and do a lot of things in your body. But kind of what we notice most is they release the histamine, and that's what causes the bright red, super itchy, from a bee sting. The histamine response is what causes it to be super bright red and super itchy. So if that's happening all over your skin, you're super itchy, that's the histamine, and it comes from the mast cells, which are a particular type of cell that's part of your overall immune system, okay? Now, if there's too much mast cell activation and what they're calling a mast cell activation syndrome, if it's in your heart or your lungs, your intestines, well, yeah, you might die from it. And that's very, very bad. And we can't have that. I'm not saying that that's not an issue or not a big deal. What I am saying is the immune system's not making a mistake. There's something in your tissues that needs to be out of there. And the way the immune system is going about doing it is targeting it with mast cells, having mast cells react to it, have the histamine call in the rest of the immune response to attack it. The body's trying to get rid of the toxins with this mast cell activation, or even the MCA syndrome. The body's doing its job. The immune system is doing what it's supposed to do. The problem is there's so many toxins in us that as it does its job, it may, shut down an organ system or kill us. So what does this information give us? It doesn't give us some new silver bullet to cure these diseases, but I think it helps us understand the approach we should be taking with these diseases or treating them. And that is, we have to look at our overall immune system health and wellness. We need to try to avoid or limit or detoxify from dead, decaying tissue that might be in our food and water system, or toxic chemicals in the environment. And it's difficult to do, but we need to try to do it to avoid these diseases, and to avoid Lyme, to avoid long COVID. That's why there's so many different treatments or treatment ideas or perspectives on Lyme, which is Borrelia, a bacteria, because the source of the dead material, what the Borrelia bacteria is feeding off of or living off of in your body that causes chronic Lyme disease, it's different from person to person or different regions of the country. And different immune systems are going to react to different things. And there's so many factors that go into it that a lot of different things are being used for different people to treat Lyme disease. Well, it's the same thing for cancer and COVID and all these other things. If parasites are your cause, then something anti-parasitical like ivermectin or Panacur might get rid of your cancer. But if parasites are not the cause, if it's EMF or if it's the food you eat, then you have to change those things to get rid of your cancer. Same for long COVID, Lyme, this upper respiratory thing in dogs. It's all the same concept, even though they're very different things. Whether it's the processed food that's dead or contaminated, or toxic chemicals, electrosmog, whatever. However, if you're experiencing a mast cell activation and a lot of histamine released, and your body is red and you're having a true allergic reaction and you're dying from it, then what's causing it doesn't matter right now. What matters right now is going to the emergency room and getting some steroids or something to stop the histamine. Okay, Western modern medicine, which I don't really practice anymore, it's great for emergencies and acute situations. If you're having a true allergic or anaphylactic reaction, your histamine response, or your dog is so itchy that they're literally ripping their own skin off. Well, in the short term, to get some relief and to not die, you need some modern Western pharmaceutical drugs like steroids to stop it. But that's not your long-term solution. That's not the cure or the treatment for the disease or the process. To fix the process, we've got to try to deal with what's causing it. And if you don't know what's causing it, that's never going to happen. So that's the point of this video, to try to point out to you that there are causes for these things, and it's the environment we live in, and we need to be more aware of the environment we live in to try to make adjustments to make ourselves healthier. So whether it's a Lyme bacteria, COVID virus, whatever they end up blaming this new mystery dog URI on, it's all about the toxins in the modern environment. And nature is trying to either rid the body of the toxins with like a bacterial disease, or the body is trying to adapt to it through viruses. So your long-term solution is to try to avoid those things, or at least find them in your environment and make yourself aware of them, because most people aren't even aware that they're there. And this leads you to my final statement. You're taking more of a proactive approach to avoiding disease instead of where we are now in our modern world of isolation, which doesn't work, and reacting to diseases. Thanks.